All right. Excellent. Hey, everybody. My name is Nathan Smith, and I think maybe still muted. Oh, nope. Okay, good. My name is Nathan Smith, and I'm the Digital Programming Coordinator for the Central Arkansas Library System. Thank you so much for joining me today for Microsoft Word Part 2, Styles, Mailings, and More. This class is a little bit of follow-up from the previous session that we did last week, Word Part 1. But if you didn't happen to be present, but you know a little bit about Word, not a problem. You are welcome to join us for just this session. Nothing that we do here is going to directly build on that in the sense that you'll need to worry about I guess, specific continuity. This is, excuse me, this is not serialized television. So let's go ahead and dive in. But before we get started, let me get a couple of quick preliminary things out of the way. First of all, of course, we've got a ton of cool stuff coming up. Virtual events coming up here at CALS. Tonight, yes, tonight at 6:30 p.m. is going to be an author discussion with Kevin Brockmeyer about his brand new book, The Ghost Variations. He's going to be talking about that this evening. So definitely come join us for that. Like I said, that's going to be 6:30 tonight. So you'll see it, well, you'll see a big banner for it if you go to cals.org, and you'll be able to click there and hop back in and join us. I won't be on camera, but I will be behind the scenes running things and I hope that you join us and enjoy it. We've got a ton of other cool stuff coming up as well. If you go to cals.org, move your mouse over events and click on find an event online. You will see all of that stuff. We've got more technology classes coming up. We've got all sorts of wonderful things. So check it out. Come and join us for some programs. The other main thing that I want to say is about just you joining me here today. Whenever I offer a class, I always like to make sure that folks know you are encouraged to ask questions throughout the session. I definitely want everybody to do that. If you think of a question based on what I'm saying, or based on something you're seeing on the screen, or anything that's honestly even vaguely related to what we're talking about today, please just speak up and let me know. I am not offended by interruptions. I'm certainly not going to judge you about the quality of the question, or whether it's an easy question for me, or any of that kind of stuff. The point of a technology class is for you to learn useful things about technology. So if you're learning something that's useful to you about technology, then class is going great. If you're not, if you're confused by what I'm saying, or if you're distracted by a nagging question in the back of your mind, or you aren't able to follow what's going on screen, that is an unsuccessful technology question, and we can log off and go back to our lives if we're not going to have a successful class. So make sure you ask those questions as they come up. To do that, if you're joining me here in Zoom on a computer, what you'll want to do is head down to the bottom of your Zoom window, click on the little speech bubble that's labeled chat, and then you should see the chat area either show up on the side or pop up in a little box. And then, you can just type in your questions and click the little thing or press enter to send them on their way to me. My goodness. If you are joining me from the Zoom mobile app, you can ask questions from there too. The way that works is tap in the middle of the screen, and you should see all your controls come up. Usually at the top right, there's going to be a little button that says more. Tap on that, and then tap chat in that menu, and that should get you into the chat so you can type me a little message. So make sure you ask those questions. Keep them coming. If you're joining me on Facebook or on YouTube, then that's easy too. On YouTube, use the live chat. If you're on a computer, it's just to the right of the video. If you're joining me on Facebook, use the comments. I'll see that. There might be just a smidge of delay, but not too much. And of course, you're welcome to jump over here to Zoom. There should be a link in the video description on YouTube, or in the text of the post on Facebook. Finally, if we have technical difficulties, please let me know about that too. If we have technical difficulties, if my mic goes out, if my camera goes out, if I'm telling you about something that you're not seeing on screen or whatever, please let me know as soon as possible. That way I can resolve the situation, and we can make sure that we make the most of our time here during class, because that's, it's nice to use our time wisely. All right, let's do this. So I have got the example files downloaded. The way to get to those, I'll go ahead and put in the chat here as well, in case you missed it on the screen before we started. Let's see, here we go. Let me pull that back up. There we go. All right. Pretty easy. Whoops. So the address that you'll go to if you want to download those is cals.click/word2files. There we go. That's there in the chat. cals.click/word2files. And so you can head there, download those example files that I'm going to be using during class. If you are if you just want to watch and not necessarily follow along this time, that's fine. Since I am streaming to Facebook and YouTube, you should be able to find the recorded version of the video on either the CALS Facebook page or on YouTube on the CALS YouTube channel. So cals.click/word2files. You can download the example files and follow along with what I'm going to be doing here on screen. All right, let's fire up the screen share and get into it. So I'm going to turn on. First of all, I'm going to show you where I'm doing this. What I did was I unzipped the zip file that comes that I just pointed you to download. I unzipped that into a folder on my desktop that I just called Word Part 2. So I'm going to leave this little window open. And what I'm going to do first is double click to open up this desertflowers.docx. That's the example document that we're going to start with. So I'll open that up and change my screen sharing to show you that window instead. There it is. Wonderful. All right. So because it's been downloaded from the internet, I do have a little warning here that says protected view, be careful, files from the internet can contain viruses, blah, 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 blah. I'll click enable editing and that will allow us to work on this. I promise I didn't put any viruses in this at all. There we go. Now we've got our document open. I am going to come up here to the top, click on this view tab and switch this to one page so that way we're only looking at one page at a time and things don't get too confusing. And I'll go ahead and zoom in a little bit just so y'all can see what I'm doing. Wonderful. Okay, great. So we've got this document here in front of us. What this is, it's a part of a public domain text, specifically Flowers of the Southwest Deserts by Nat N. Dodge, drawings by Jeanette R. Janish or something. This was published by the Park Service back in, I want to say, the 50s. And so it's a public domain text that we can play around with totally safely, and hopefully this will, hopefully it'll be a good way to practice this stuff. So what I want to talk about first is I want to talk about styles, style sets, and themes. And let's see. Let me pull up my notes here so that way I can make sure I'm covering all the stuff we need to get to. There we go. All right, so we're going to talk about styles, style sets, and themes. Otherwise known, the styles and style sets are also sometimes known as formatting more generally. Formatting in computer world basically just means taking information and making it look different without necessarily changing the content of it. So in the case of, in this case, we're not really going to change anything that's in this this chapter of this book, but we are going to rearrange things so that they're a little bit more readable to our audience, if assuming that we were the authors of this. Okay, so let's talk first about styles themselves. Oh yeah, I clicked on the View tab. I'm going to click back up here on the Home tab at the top to get back to the tools that I'll need for today. Okay, so the first thing I want to do, if you scroll through here, you'll notice we have how to use this booklet, plant names, and then down here, be serious about plant names, but not too serious. The desert, what and where is it? National parks and monuments as wildflower sanctuaries, etc. There are a bunch of little headings inside this document already. That's a good practice in general if you're writing a long document. Generally speaking, particularly if it's something that's sort of more nonfiction, you want to break it up into sections. So that way your audience has some signposts to kind of be able to see where they are and know what you're talking about in a given portion of your document. That's going to help people, that's going to help hold people's attention a little bit better than if they just had a wall of text to read, essentially. So it can be kind of a pain to break up your document that way, but it's worth it if you want your, if you want your audience to be able to digest the full thing. And to be perfectly honest, like a lot of times, if you're thinking in that direction, it makes it a lot easier to organize your document because suddenly you're thinking, well, this doesn't really go in this section. And, you're organizing things in a more logical way. So it's gonna, sometimes I find at least, it helps me think through the contents of my document a little bit better than I otherwise might. So, so we have all these headings here. What we want to do is we want to mark those out more clearly in our document. And styles are a way that we can do that. What I'm going to do is select here where it says how to use this booklet. So I'm going to hold down with my mouse button next to this text and drag until I've got it shaded in gray so that it's selected, just like we did some last week. Got that selected. Now what I'm going to do is come up to the top here and I'm going to click where it says heading 1. And you'll notice right away a pretty big difference. We still use Times New Roman, the same font as the rest of the document, but now instead of 12 as the size, up here it's 24 as the size. We've also got this heading is in bold, which the other text wasn't beforehand. It's centered, and the spacing has changed too. So there's a little bit more space between this text, and also this and this. And so now you can clearly see this is the heading for a section of my document. If I scroll down a little further, I'll grab another one. There's an extra space there. Plant names. I'm going to click on heading 1 again. And again, it applies the same formatting to the text. 24-point size, bold, centered, and with some additional spacing there. And that sets this apart as clearly a header inside of my document. I could keep going on this. I'll pick one. I'll do one more. The desert. What and where is it? Heading 1. Okay, good. So there are a few. Well, let's try a couple other styles. So another thing that I could do up here, it says flowers of the Southwest Desert. So I'm going to select that one. Up here at the top, I'm going to click on title. And that's going to set it apart as the title. So this is a little different. That was centered initially, but now it's not. Now it's aligned along the left-hand margin. And we've changed fonts. So instead of Times New Roman, we've got Calibri Light, 28 point. And I think it was in bold before, and now it's not. What this allows you to do, now, obviously you could go through here and for each of your section headings, you could select them and then you could go, okay, make sure it's Times New Roman, and then you could change it to 24, and then you could make it bold, and then you could center it, and then you could use this, this drop-down box here to change your spacing and so on and so forth. All that's totally doable, but the styles make it easier. Not only can I, could I change the style with just one click up here at the top, but I can make it consistent every time. So if I come down here, if find another one. If I had this selected and I was like, oh, I need to style this as like a heading, if I'm doing it manually, then I have to remember each and every time, okay, make sure it's Times New Roman, make sure it's 24 size, make sure it's bold, make sure it's centered, make sure it's spaced differently. I have to remember that each and every time. Otherwise, when my audience is just reading through my document, they're not worried about composing the document like I am. And so it's, it's possible that they might notice, they might notice a thing or two that I missed. Let's say that I made it, I did everything except that I needed to, except I forgot to make it bold, or I centered it, but then I didn't change the spacing or whatever. When you use styles to change all of those formats at once, you don't have to worry about remembering that stuff. You can just apply it and move on. Down here at the bottom, if I wanted to add another section and use this heading option, I could do that. I'm going to click here at the end, press enter, and then before I even start typing the header, I can go ahead and click heading 1 here and then say another section. There we go. When I press enter, it is going to give me another heading 1, but all I need to do to switch back to regular text is click normal up here, and then it goes back to the default for this document, which is Times New Roman 12-point size. If I want, I can also create subheadings for sections inside of a document. So for example, if I want to start a subsection here, I'll just add another space, go for heading 2, and then there we go. Now I have my subheading as well. It is still Times New Roman. It's 14.5 rather than 12. It's got extra spacing, it's centered, and it's bold. So similar to the heading 1, but just a little bit smaller, honestly, is really all that is. And then if I want, subheadings, I can go for heading 3, subheadings, heading 4, and so on and so forth. So I can have a pretty complex like outline structure for my document without having to think about it too much, and with it being pretty easy to stay consistent, which is wonderful. Let's see, what else can I do here? Oh, plant names. Be serious about plant names, but not too serious. I'm going to select that. And I'm going to come up here. Now there's a few different options. We have subtitle. That might be what we need. But I actually have more options than can even fit up here. So if I use this down arrow, I can scroll down the list and then I can see a whole new row of options. Or I can press this button, which is the more button. If I move over it, you can see. And that will show me all of the different options that I have for this particular situation here. Let's go subtle emphasis. That's usually a good choice. Click on that. There we go. So this is kind of a subtitle for the plant names section. I'm going to turn off these formatting marks because they're getting a little distracting. Okay, cool. So this can be really helpful for a lot of different reasons. As I mentioned, it helps your audience stay focused on what on the content that you've written for them. It's also going to help you. It's going to help your document look more professional and well designed, because obviously, if somebody just sends you a document that they quickly typed up in Word, that's just a page or two of solid text. It just looks like they did something quickly, without too much attention to detail, just to kind of get it out there. Sometimes that's all you need to do, But if you're trying to impress, or if you're trying to persuade, or certainly if you're advertising, or putting something out there that where it's very important that your audience, who maybe doesn't know you, thinks well of you, or whatever, this is a pretty useful communication tool, because as humans, whether because of the way that our brains work, if a document looks nice, that document is going to hold our attention a lot better than a document that's strictly utilitarian, because it tells us the person who wrote this document cared enough to make it look really good, and and also has some knowledge, enough knowledge that they were able to make it look good, on purpose. So those are some of the reasons that this is really useful. Another pretty cool thing that this does, that's kind of almost a side effect. If I go up here to the top and click where it says find, that's going to slide out this little navigation pane on the left-hand side here. Once I've got that open, there's, it gives me this little blank where I can search for a particular word or a particular phrase or whatever inside my document, which is great. But I can also go over here and click on where it says headings. When I click on that headings tab, you can actually see the outline structure of my document, at least as I've defined it. Now, there are some sections down here where I haven't labeled the section headings as headings. Desert plants here, for example. There we go. Oh, when I added it, it adds over here too. And acknowledgements, there we go. Okay. So you'll see over here, we've got all of our headings and subheadings listed out in kind of outline format. And if I click on something, it goes straight to it. So that's really useful for getting around, particularly if it's a longer document. And that can help you keep things organized while you're working on the document. Another thing that can help you while you're working on the document is, you'll notice when I move my mouse over one of these headings, I get this little arrow next to it. If I click on that arrow, it actually collapses the whole section underneath that heading. And so now I can go straight from how to use this booklet to the desert, what and where is it, without having to scroll through this plant names section. And that is extremely convenient, because now, because if I'm already done with the plant names section, I don't want to have to scroll through it all the time, particularly if I'm working on sections surrounding it. So rather than have to scroll back and forth across pages and pages of text I'm already done with, or text I'm not going to worry about for now, I can just collapse that section and hide it away, and then when I'm ready for it, when I need to look at it again, I can click the arrow again, and it rolls back out there so that I can see it. So that's another really useful thing if you're working on your document in sections. That's a really useful thing to be able to do as you are composing. So let's talk about a few other things you can do here. So one of the things that you can do is you can make changes to the settings here. So right now, Times New Roman 12 point is the default normal text in this particular document. But if I want to make it look a little bit different, I can totally do that. One way to do that is I can select this, and then I can just make the changes that I want. Let's say I want the text to be green. I'm going to come down here, click on green, and now this text has changed to green. If I scroll up somewhere else, This one's not changed, but if I changed one of my headings to be that way, unless there's some, some reason that I need it to look different from all the other headings, what I probably want to do is actually make this consistent so that all the other ones match it if I like this style better. To do that, what I'm going to do is, while I have this selected and after I've made the change, I'm going to come up here, click on, or right click where it says heading 1, and I can click update heading 1 to match selection. And I do that, you'll notice it changes up here at the top, and it changes in all of the heading 1 sections of my document. The subheading hasn't changed because that's following a different style, this heading 2. But let's say I want to change that. Let's say I want to make those blue. This time, rather than selecting the text and updating heading 2 to match, instead what I'm going to do is right click on heading 2 and click modify. When I do that, I can change lots of different things about that particular heading 2 style. I could change the name of it if I want to. I could change the sort of the settings that it starts with before the changes that are specific to this. I can change which style is going to, like if I press enter, essentially, which style is going to be next. So that can be kind of handy. There we go. And then I can change the specific formats that we're working with. So Times New Roman, 14.5, all of that. But instead of here where it says automatic, I can click on that and I'll change it to, say, this blue. There we go. And now when I click OK, heading 2 has changed up here at the top in the styles area, and then any text that's formatted as heading 2 has changed inside my document as well. Of course, there's only one subheading at this point, but it's changed. So you can define a whole visual style for your document that way. If you if you have specific fonts that you want, or maybe there are specific fonts in your company's branding or something like that, if there are specific colors you want to use, all of that stuff, you can define all of these styles however you want, essentially, and then change the and then still be able to use those consistently throughout your document, rather than going through and having to change each and every heading. So that's really handy. It helps you stay consistent, and it helps your document look more interesting to your audience. So that's styles themselves. What questions do y'all have for me about that before we talk about something that's related, but is I guess a slight change in topic? Cool. Well, if you do have questions that you think of later, or if you're in the middle of typing a question and haven't quite gotten it all the way in the chat box yet, no big deal. Just ask them when you can, and I'll make sure they get addressed. But let's move on to the next, as I said, related thing from here. What I'm going to do is, at the top, I'm going to head over to the Design tab here and click on that. When I click on the Design tab, now just a reminder from last week, all those tabs up at the top, that's an area called the ribbon. And the ribbon is kind of a tool chest for all the various tools or commands, as Microsoft says, that you can use inside of Word. So when I click on the Design tab, as you might imagine, I have a bunch of options that are related to the design of my document. There are a few things over here that have to do with the page background that we're not going to talk about, but all of this stuff is directly related to what we were just, talking about, which is the styles over on the Home tab. So the first thing you should know, here in the middle where I've got this big long list of options, if I click on this, click on the More button, it's going to show me some, it's going to expand it out as much as it can. It looks like actually all of them fit in the little window this time. But there's a style, or there's stuff for this document, and then there's another section that says built in. So what's happening here, these are what we call style sets. And actually, you've already seen a style set already, which is this over here. When I expand this out, all of these different text styles together create a style set. That's what they are. A style set is, well, a set of these styles that can be applied to different parts of your document, just depending on how you've set it up. So when I go back over to the Design tab, this is the style set that I was, this is the current style set, this document style set. But these are other ones that I could apply instead if I wanted to use another sort of pre-made one. For example, this one here, if I click on this, this one's called Lines, and then in parentheses, Stylish. When I click on that, my subheading is, let's see, orange. The font for the subheading is Calibri Light. It's 18-point size, and it's aligned along the left-hand margin. If I scroll up and find a section head, or a heading 1 like this, we've got it aligned along the left-hand side. Again, it's Calibri Light, but it's size 20 rather than 18, and it has a little line underneath it. So just by clicking one button, essentially, I've changed the entire look and feel in my document. This one uses regular Calibri as the normal or body font. And it's completely changed from a serifed font, like we talked about. Serifed fonts are those that have the fonts that have the little flourishes on the ends of things. So for example, let's see, well, if I undo this, so Times New Roman is an example of a serifed font. It has these little, the bottom of this L here, it has the little flat part. And when I look at the, let's see, when I look at the S, it's got like a flat thing here at the top of the S and a flat thing here at the bottom of the S. And these two little sort of feet at the bottom of the lowercase n. All of those little flourishes are what's known as serifs. If your document is going to be read on paper, then serifed fonts are usually the most readable ones. So you want to, so if your document's primarily going to be a paper document, you might want to go with a serifed font. Whereas if I switch back over to this one, which uses Calibri. Calibri is a sans serif font, which is easier to read on a screen. So it makes, it can make a big difference which style set you choose here. But there are actually even sets of style sets. So if I come over here and click on themes, then I can see a bunch of different themes. So each theme that I see in this list is, well, it's a few things. The themes contain style sets, and they also have some properties of their own. So for example, let's see, I'm going to come down here and select the Damask theme. Click on that. And now you can see it's already changed. I still have, this one's called Lines Stylish still, but this particular style set uses a whole different set of fonts and colors. So Bookman Old Style is the font for the headings. Rockwell is the font for the body. And they're blue. And use these green underlines here, rather than the settings that we had for Lines Stylish on the in the previous theme. So the way that this works, well, the way that works is essentially you've got your themes are primarily defined by these settings over here. first of all, the colors. If I click on this, you can see a bunch of different color schemes that are color palettes, I guess you might say, that you can select from. And so this one, let's see. I'm not sure which one this is actually using, but whichever one it is using, if you, I could change it up. I could go red, orange if I wanted to, and then looks like orange goes under these, in these underlines here, we get orange here, et cetera, et cetera. I'll undo that. Each theme also has a set of fonts associated with it. So, so there are usually either 1 or 2 fonts. For example, this set of fonts uses Consoleless as the header font and Verdana as the body font or the normal font for documents that use that set. And you can click Customize Fonts and define your own sets of fonts. You don't usually, in design in general, you usually don't want to use more than 2 to potentially 3 fonts, just depending on the situation. And you want to have clear reasons for switching from one to another. What Word does is, the reason is, if you're using a different font, it's because you've either switched from a header to body text or from body text to a header. And so it only lets you define 2 fonts in a set of them. You can also change the paragraph spacing associated with your theme, the effects associated with your theme. So if you have like objects or pictures inside of your document, these effects will affect them. And then you can click, if you, I wouldn't necessarily do this right now, but if you find a look that you really like, you can click Set as Default. And then whenever you open up Word on that computer, it will use the same style or the same theme, the same style set, and the same styles. And so, so if you do find something you really like, then you can make that the default, and that way your documents will look consistent. So let's see, let's just play around with these for a minute. Oh, right. So if you have if you decide to make changes and you come up with something you really like, in addition to just setting it as the default, you can also save your themes by clicking Save Current Theme. If I click the More button down here, you can always save the current style set as a new style set. So that way, you can save those particular styles too. So feel free to play around with it and find something you really, really like. And then, that way your documents will have a consistent and interesting look. All right. Any questions about that stuff before we shift gears? While you're thinking about that or typing, one little bit of sort of trivia, and it might be useful information to you at some point, is that you can actually take your, is that if you have a document set up like this, you can actually create a table of contents. So I'll just press enter here. And if I go to References, Table of Contents, and click on Automatic Table 1, then it's going to generate a table of contents automatically from my headings and subheadings. If you change your headings and subheadings, or the page that they're on changes as you edit your document, you will need to click this button that says Update Table to make sure it updates itself. But but that's a really useful way if you're going to have a particularly long document, or if you're writing a book or something like that. That's a good way to help your audience get to the information they need quickly. All right, I haven't seen any questions so far, so let's go ahead and switch over to the next thing here. We're going to talk a little bit about collaboration and review. So I'm going to come up to the top and click on the review tab up here. And when I click on that, you'll see, well, you'll see obviously the tools change that are up here at the top. There are some things that we're not necessarily going to talk a whole lot about on this tab, but are probably worth mentioning. Up here, mine has the editor now. The editor folds in like the old spell check and grammar check that they used to have. Some of that stuff is good, and you can, you can kind of, you can either go through the editor, or you can, as you're going through your document, you can kind of find these various kinds of underlines that give you suggestions of how to phrase things, or where to remove a potentially redundant word, or in this case, words that they might think are misspelled. So you can certainly use it for that, but just bear in mind it is a computer, and and while it can do some things, computers don't understand language in the same way that we as humans do, and your audience is going to be humans, not computers. So you don't want to. So if it gives you a suggestion, you don't necessarily want to take that as gospel. You want to think it through, and not just click to change it right away. For example, with this, these are species names for certain plants. So even though it says they're misspelled, they're probably not, and I probably shouldn't change those. You've also got, there's mine, some of the older versions of Word won't have this, but mine has a read aloud feature. It has a feature for checking accessibility to make sure that folks with different kinds of disabilities, and honestly just folks with different kinds of devices, can access the content that's in your document. You have an automated translation feature up here at the top, and you can also change what language you're writing in. So that way, if you're writing a language or if you're writing a document in another language, spell check and grammar check and all that stuff will work in that language rather than English. With this translate feature, obviously that's useful if you need just kind of a something quick that gets the point across to someone who speaks another language. But if you want to look professional in another language, I definitely recommend pretending that this feature doesn't exist and hiring a translator who's fluent in that language instead. So let's talk about review and collaboration here. So the review tab gives us a few different tools for reviewing our work and also collaborating with other people. For example, one of those is the comment feature right here. If I come up here, you'll notice I've got this new comment button. I'm actually going to move to into the middle of my document here. Let's say, excuse me, goodness. Get a little sleepy after lunch sometimes. The loose application of common names is a confusing annoyance to wildflower enthusiasts. I'm going to select this and say maybe we can and suggest to the if I'm editing, I might suggest the author maybe we can do without this sentence. So what I'm going to do is come up here to the top, click on new comment, and you'll notice now the sentence is highlighted in red. And over here on the side, I've got this little box. It says Nathan Smith a few seconds ago, and I can type in, do we really need this sentence, question mark. Oh, so we really need, that's a little more aggressive than, there we go. All right, so now I've got that in there. Once the author receives it, they can reply to the comment. So if they click here, they could say like, yes, there we go. And then we can kind of keep on replying back and forth until we have an agreement, or until whoever has the final say says, I have the final say and it's going to be this way. When that happens, or when we get it wrapped up, we can come down here and click resolve. And now the comments are still there in case we need to refer back to them, but we've marked them as being done, basically. So that can be really handy, because then rather than having to say like in your email, or rather than having to send along an attachment and then say in the email like, in the third paragraph on page X, you said XYZ. I think it should be ZYX instead. You can just put your comment right here inside of the document, and that way the person can see it when they open it up to work on it some more. So we have that. You can also, if let's say you put a comment in here, but you actually don't want it, there's the option to delete. You can either delete just the one. Oh my goodness, excuse me. Or you can delete all comments in a document, just depending on what you want to do. And you can use these previous and next buttons to navigate. So if I come up here and say, let's see, I could just put a comment right here. Nope. Wonderful. All right, I've got that there. And now if I want to move between comments, I can just use these previous and next buttons to get there without having to scroll around. So those are comments. The other thing up here that I think is really useful is the ability to track changes. So what this is basically let's say that I'm editing for the author of this document, and they send me an email with a copy of the document attached. When I open it up, if I'm ready to give them some editorial feedback, what I'm going to do is click at the top on track changes. You'll notice it shades in here a little bit. In other versions of Word, it might shade blue rather than gray like mine did, but it's the same thing. Now that track changes is on, what I'm going to do is come down and references, the review tab, and make some edits. So very close relative, I'm just going to delete the very, so I'll select that and press spacebar. And that's an extra space more than I need. There we go. So now we've deleted the word very. Rather than it just disappearing though, it turns red and it's crossed out. So if I'm the author and I get this back from my editor later on, when I see this, I know right away, oh, they made a change there. So that way the author knows exactly what changes were made, rather than having to guess or having to think about it and be like, oh, I guess it's good, or I guess, or no, I really want, this other thing in there. If I want to read the document in its sort of final-ish form, up here at the top, there's a drop-down that says all markup. And if I click on this, I can click simple markup, and that changes it so that the document, in the body of the document, it looks the same, or it looks like it would if I just made that edit. But there's a little red line over here that tells me there are changes that were tracked on this line in the paragraph. There we go. Okay, come down here. All right, we've got some numbering here. There we go. Okay, I've added an item to the list. And let's see, let's just delete this whole paragraph. Select that, backspace. There we go. Okay, so I made some edits to the document. Next to each one is this little red line here. If I click on it, then it'll show more specifically what the changes are. Specifically, I added this extra item to the list down here. Rather than the paragraph not appearing at all, it shows the paragraph, but it's crossed out with strike through, and it's red. So now I can see what the edits were on my document without having to have my entire document memorized, because I've slept since I wrote it, and so I probably don't remember every little word that I wrote previously. So let's say that I do get this back from an editor, and they've used this change tracking to suggest some edits in my document. When I get it back, I'll open it up, and it will have this track changes shaded in. I'll click the button to turn off the change tracking, and if I make a change now, regardless of whether markup is turned on or off, you'll notice there's no red, there's no little line over here. So I'm making a permanent edit to my document this way. But now what I'm going to do is, as the original author, I want to go through and see what changes my editor has made and decide whether I want to keep those changes or not. So what I'm going to do up here in this changes section of the review tab, I'm going to start at the top of my document, and I'm going to click next. Excuse me. When I do, it takes me down to the first either comment or tracked change in this document. And there's the comment. I can either read it, reply to it, I could make a change over here to work on the issue, or I could hit resolve, or even right click and click delete comment. All right, I'm gonna click next. Next, there's a tracked change. The word vary was deleted. So if I'm good with that, then I can hit accept, and it'll lock it in. You'll notice if I scroll back up here, oh, that's right, I accepted it. So the vary is gone, not its very close relative, but just its close relative. Then, so hitting next from there takes me down to this comment. Do we really need this sentence? And then I can, that one's already resolved, so I don't really need to do anything with that. Next again. Okay, they added an extra sentence here. Let's see, nope, okay. Oh, because there are two changes, or two comments in this thread, it's showing me both. If I hit next again, it selects this. Okay, this is an added sentence. If I accept this, then it'll become permanent. It'll turn black and be accepted, like so. This is an extra sentence. And then it immediately moves me down to this change right here, where I added an extra item to the list of deserts here. Let's say that I hit reject on this one. When I do, the item goes away and there's no indication that it was there. So I permanently rejected that suggestion and removed the item from the list. And then I can decide on this one. Let's say I'm going to hit accept on this one. So now that little paragraph is gone. So that's a nice little way to to make edits to a document, to suggest edits without making them permanent or enforcing them, and also a way to point out edits that you've made to a document with the author. And honestly, it kind of makes it easier in a way if somebody is just going through and using track changes to make the edits on your document, then they don't have to say, you use the wrong verb tense in this sentence or whatever. They can just correct it in the document. You can see where it was corrected, and then you can either accept that correction or reject it, just depending on what it is. So it's a lot less sort of like, it's a lot less of an indication, like it's not saying as directly like, oh, you really made a mistake here. It's more just, it's more just kind of pure collaboration working on the document. If you have multiple copies of the same document that are somewhat different, you can also use this compare option to see what the different versions of the document are. And there's a combine option here, which allows you, if you have multiple people making edits to a document separately, you can combine their versions of the document together to create a more final harmonized one. So that's comments and change tracking. What questions do y'all have for me about that before we move to our final section here? Wonderful. All right. Again, let me know if you have anything, and we will tackle it as it comes. Okay, so because of so for this last example, we're going to need the other two files that were included in the example files that I provided. So I'm going to switch over to my folder here, and I'm going to double click on mailmerge.docx to get that document open. Again, I need to click enable editing at the top. And whoops, oh, I forgot to show you that part. Okay. Try that again. All right. Double click on mail merge. Now change the screen sharing. And again, if you get the little yellow message up here that says this is a file from the internet or whatever, just enable editing, so that way you can work on this. Okay, cool. So in this document, we're going to do what's called a mail merge. Mail merge is, of course, part of the title of this particular class session. It's a really cool technique, and what it allows you to do is it allows you to write one version of a document, but end up with a customized one for each of the recipients of that document. For example, if you're sending a letter out to 200 customers, each and every customer can have a mail merged version of their document that says, or that says their name on it, that has their address, and that pulls out details about their, about their history with you, or about their location or whatever, so that you can give them the feeling that you are communicating with them individually without having to without actually having to sit down and write 200 copies of a message that are essentially identical except for a few key details. So that's what we're going to do in this example. We're going to create a mail merged document here so that we can send this out to various customers. Okay, so for this example, by the way, we're going to pretend that it is currently 2020 and proceed accordingly. Let's go ahead and dive in and work on this example and get this customized for our customers. Okay, so the first thing we want to do is click on the Mailings tab because that's where all this mail merge stuff is. And then up at the top, we can click Start Mail Merge. But when the drop-down arrow or when the drop-down menu appears, we're going to see letters as the top option, and it's actually already shaded in. And that's the option we want. So, because we're creating letters. If we wanted to use one of these other options, we could. Now, some of you may have noticed it says email messages as the next item there. If you, whoops, okay, I don't know what I just did. I hit a key with my arm. Okay, there we go. So what this is going to do is, so this particular email messages option, rather than just creating a version of a message or sending it out directly, you do actually have to use the Microsoft Outlook email program in order to use this function. So not just even if you use Outlook on the web, like on office.com or whatever, this you actually have to use the Outlook program on your computer. So it's not very flexible, unfortunately. And honestly, I've found it kind of slow. So I wouldn't necessarily recommend this, even though it is an option. You can also create envelopes. You can create mailing labels. You can create a directory of some sort, and so on and so forth. We're going to stick with letters. And then here where it says select recipients, this is obviously a pretty important part. We need to import the data that we have that we're going to pull from in order to make our personalized versions of the letter. So I'll click select recipients, and then there's type a new list, use an existing list, or choose from Outlook contacts. The best option, generally speaking, is use an existing list, because most of the time you're going to be doing this by kind of pulling in something like an Excel file or something like that in order to get the information that you need. Type a new list is not terribly helpful because, like, if you are going to type it anyway, like that's, well, frankly, that's a lot of work. If you keep a whole bunch of people in your Outlook contacts, and you've got this option, but most people don't use contacts in Outlook, so you can safely ignore it as well. I'll choose use an existing list. It's going to drop me into this folder called My Data Sources that's inside my Documents folder on my computer. These two little placeholder files here, when you open them up, basically will allow you to connect to certain other sources that aren't files stored on your computer. And so, so you can use that to, for instance, connect to a web-based database or different things like that. For our purposes, though, I'm not going to do that. Instead, I'm going to go to the desktop and open up my Word Part 2 folder with my example files and click on customerorders.xlsx. And I'll click, it gives me a nice little preview over here. I'm going to click open. Okay, when I click open, it gives me this select table dialog box. In this box, I want to choose order list. It has a little $sign next to it. To be perfectly honest with you, I'm not 100% sure why that is, but order list is the selection we need here. I'll click OK. Oh, first row of data and columns contains column headers. Yes, that's correct. If you look at the actual file, it does have headers over the columns. Okay, I see somebody used the hand raise thing. Go ahead, if you would, just type in your question in the chat and we will tackle it. No problem. So I'm going to select order list there, and okay, yeah. So somebody said is asking to go back a step. No problem. Okay, so up at the top, I'm clicking select recipients and choosing use an existing list. Like I said, that's always going to start me out in this my data sources folder in case you wanted to, for instance, connect to an online database that you had access to or something like that. But in this case, I'm actually just going to go to the desktop, which is where I put my example files that I had downloaded, and find the folder that I put the example files in, and choose customerorders.xlsx, which is an Excel workbook that I included with the example files. You've got your column headings up here at the top in row number 1, and then you've got and then you have the actual information in the rows down below there. Once I click open, it's going to pop up with this dialog box. What this is specifically, just so that you know why this is coming up, this filter database thing, I think you can kind of like filter the information before it comes into Word. I'm not 100% sure how that works, and so I have ignored that so far, and it has not been a problem. But these two are sheets inside of the Excel workbook. So the little tabs at the bottom of an Excel file, if you've seen those, these are those. This one is hidden though. The conditional one, the order list one, is the one we need. I'll click OK. And now nothing happens on screen, except you'll notice up at the top, we now have a bunch of additional buttons here, additional options that we can use for our mail merge. Were you able to follow that part this time? Okay, great. Excellent. I'm so glad. Like I said, y'all just ask questions when they come up, and we'll make sure we tackle them. I don't want anybody to fall behind. Cool. So here we go. Let's do our mail merge and make everything, get everything in here the way we want it to be. First things first, what we want to do is I want to change right up here at the top the address information. So we have our, we've got our, let's see, we have essentially just a placeholder address right here. And what we want to do is get rid of that. So I'm going to click in the document. I'm going to come down, and I'm just going to hold down delete or use backspace to get rid of this whole fake address. There we go. So now I have a blank line, and then I have Thursday, September 20th, 2020. I'm going to come up here to the top where it says address block. Excuse me, click on that. And then we're going to start putting the addresses from our data set in. So first of all, up here at the top, we have insert recipient's name in this format. So this is going to be the recipient who's going to get one of our finished copies of the letter. If, for instance, the person's name was Joshua Q. Randall Jr., then you would have all these different options from Josh or Joshua to Joshua Q. Randall Jr., or even if we have information about spouses and stuff, Josh and Cynthia Randall, Josh Q and Cynthia Randall, Joshua Randall Jr. and Cynthia Smith, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So we can really get in depth with that just depending on what information we have about our recipient. In this case, we're not so fancy. We don't even have a middle name or middle initial area, nor do we have like prefixes and suffixes like junior. So we don't have to be all that fancy with it. Insert postal address. I usually use the default here. So Only include the country/region if different than United States. Since we're mailing it from the United States, there's no reason to put specifically that it's a United States address. But if it's an address for another place, and in this case, there are Canada customers in our list of customer information, then it would be helpful to say that they're in a different country. And then there's a checkbox that says format address according to the destination country/region. That just makes a whole lot of sense because it's going to be a lot more likely that they're going to get that the letter is going to get there if the address is formatted for the right or is formatted the way that their country's postal service expects. Over here on the side, we can now see a preview. It says preview. Here is a preview from your recipient list. And you can see that we have a problem. Azia Fikes, Falcon Crest, 41837. That's not enough information to get the letter to the person, or if it is, no, it's not. So what we want to do is come down here and where it says correct problems, we want to click match fields. And that's going to give us a list of types of information. And then on the other side here, a drop-down box where we can select which column of our sheet that information would be found in. So let me actually open up that sheet for you so you can see it. Okay. Cool. So this is what it looks like. We've got our order number in column A, date, the amount, in other words, how much the order cost the customer, the number of items, the street address, the city, the state or province, the zip code, the country, their first name, their last name, their email address, their phone number, and the salesperson who sold them the order. So that's the data set that we're working with. Cool. So back here in Word, what we've got, what we want to do is essentially match those column headings from Excel with the types of information that we have listed over here. So middle name, we don't have a field for that, so not matched. Last name, last, great. Suffix, nope. Nickname, nope. Company, nope. Address one, not match. So this is one that we do definitely have where we do definitely have the information in our workbook. We need to just point Word in the right direction. So I'll click where it says not matched, and I'll change that to street. That's our street address. Address two, we don't have an address to field. City, we got that one. State, not matched. I'll click on that and change it to state/PROV, province. And then zip, country. What else? All of this stuff. Business phone, that's good. Great. Okay, we've got it. So I'm not going to do this, but if you used a particular file regularly to send out mail merged information to other people, you could check this box. It says, remember this matching for this set of data sources on this computer. So that would allow you to basically, now that you've made this matching, now that you've done these matches, next time you write a letter, if you use the same spreadsheet, you won't have to worry about rematching those couple of fields that we needed to identify. I'll click OK. And now if you look, it's Azia Fikes, 3511 Old Ramp, Falcon Crest, Kentucky, 41837. Now that's an address. So we've got it. If I want to see more examples, just to make absolutely sure it's working correctly, I can click these little arrows here and I can see different addresses. We've got a Canada person here, Abelard Rickard. All that looks fine to me. Looks good. I'm going to click OK. And now our first merge tag is right here. So the merge tags are little placeholders for content that's going to be inserted into your document when the mail merge is completed. So in this case, we have the merge tag for the address block, and you'll see two little brackets, angle brackets next to address block right here. Great. Okay, so coming on down, we have dear customer, comma. Let's get rid of that. I'm going to select that, delete it, make sure I have a blank line here, but nothing else. And we want to insert a little greeting for our customer who's receiving this letter. So I'll put my cursor here on this blank line, come up here to greeting line, click on that. And now we have another little dialog box here, insert greeting line. Dear Joshua Randall Jr., comma, greeting line for invalid recipient names. So if we had some listings that didn't have names, then it would probably put dear sir or madam, or whatever. You could do like to whom it may concern, or you can write something different. So here's a preview. We can see dear Abelard Rickard. If I want to change this format, you've got two, you've got none, you can type your own thing. Joshua Randall Jr. Again, that's the name format, just like we had in the other dialog box. And then you can change whether you want a comma or a colon or nothing. I'll stick with the comma and I'll click OK. Now we have our greeting line. So each letter is going to say dear, first and last name, comma, and that'll be our greeting. Okay, we're glad you become a customer with us this year. We'd love to offer you $20 off your next order with us. Just use the offer code US20 on our website when placing your order. So the first sentence gives us a little clue of the next step that we're going to take. But man, I keep hitting the mic right now. Some of these customers, if you were to look back at Excel, I'm not going to switch back over to the Excel window right now, but if you were to look back at Excel, one of the things you'll notice is some customers have orders that are dated 2020, and some of them have orders that are dated 2019. And since we're pretending that it's 2020 for the sake of this example, we want the 2020 customers to get this letter, but we don't want the 2019 customers to get this letter because they became customers with us last year, not this year. So in order to make that happen, in order to filter out the people whose order dates were 2019, what I'm going to do is come up to the top and click on Rules. In the drop-down box, I'm going to click Skip Record If. In this dialog box, we've got field name. So we're looking at the column in our workbook that we're referring to. So there's order, date, amount. Date is what we want. Then comparison, equal to, not equal to, less than, greater than, less than or equal, greater than or equal, is blank or is not blank. So what we want is less than. And then we'll just put 01, 01, 20, 20. And then click OK. What that's going to do, you'll notice it puts a little, another merge tag here that says skip record if ... My recipients won't see that, nor will they see anything in its place. Instead, we're just telling Word, hey, don't bother to make a merged version of this letter for customers whose order dates were last year or 2019 or before. So we've done that. Next, down here, okay, so we're glad you become a customer with us this year. We'd love to offer you $20 off your next order with us. Just use the offer code US20 on our website when placing your order. So, as I mentioned before, we've got US customers in this list. We've also got Canada customers in this list. And so in order to, for our Canada customers, we don't want them to use the offer code US20. We're going to give them $25 Canadian off of their order if they use the offer code CA25 instead. So in order to make that happen, in order to change that depending on where they're located, we need to add a little rule another little rule to our letter. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to select these two sentences with my mouse. We'd love to offer you $20 off your next order. So let's just use blah, 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 placing your order. Then I'm going to copy it. One option that you have is to click with the right mouse button, or if you're on a laptop and using a touchpad, tap with 2 fingers, and then click copy. Another option that I have, and the option that I usually prefer personally, is to use the keyboard shortcut instead. In pretty much all of Windows, to use the copy function rather than right-clicking or trying to find it on the screen, you can usually just hold Control while pressing C. So Control C for copy. That doesn't just work in Word, it works in pretty much any program that supports copy and paste. So I've copied the text. Now I'm going to come up here where it says rules, and I'm going to do if, then, else. Okay, so if, and then we do field name. So this is the drop down, these are the different columns. We're going to look for country. So if country is either equal to, not equal to, less than, greater than, blah, 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 we're going to say equal to, and then US. So make sure you do it capital U, capital S, no periods, because that's how I wrote it in the spreadsheet. And then we have insert this text. So what I want to do is paste the text in. Unfortunately, if you use right click or if you would normally tap with 2 fingers, that's not going to work in this case. For some reason, this particular blank does not allow you to paste. So instead of right clicking to paste in here, what I'm going to do instead is use the keyboard shortcut for paste. And again, this works in almost any program in all of Windows. By the way, if you're using a Mac, you can also do this. You'll just use the command key rather than the control key. But for Windows, the keyboard shortcut is Control V. So hold Control, CTRL, in the bottom left of your keyboard while pressing V. Says, we'd love to offer you $20 off your next order with us. Just use the offer code US20 on our website when placing your order. Great. So if country is equal to US, then we'll fill this in. It says, otherwise insert this text. So I'm going to paste the same sentences again in this blank, and then we're going to edit them. So again, I'll hold Control in the bottom left of my keyboard while pressing V as in Victor, which is the paste keyboard shortcut. The way I remember that, by the way, is the V kind of looks like an arrow that's saying, paste the information here. So that's your little mnemonic. It says, we'd love to offer you $20 off on your next order with us. We need to change that to 25. And then we need to change our offer code to CA25. There we go. Then I click OK. And there we have it. All right, so it did change it. It replaced it. If you see 2 copies of the sentence, then you'll need to delete the original one that doesn't shade in when you click on it like this. Let's see. All right, so we've got our letter. Oh, there's one last thing on the letter. I knew I was missing something. After that, it actually turns into the first couple of paragraphs of War of the Worlds by H.G. Wells, just so that it looks like a longer letter than it actually is. And then down here at the bottom, it says, sincerely, Jojo, your Splat Inc. sales associate. But Jojo isn't a real sales associate, and we want to put the name of the salesperson who actually sold them their order in this spot here. So what I'm going to do is backspace Jojo's name right there. And then on this blank line, I'm going to go up to the top, click on Insert Merge Field, and then click on Salesperson. Oh, if you click the button up here, it's going to give you a little pop-up like dialog box like this. If you click the words Insert Merge Field and the little arrow here, then it's going to give you this drop-down box. If you get the dialog box like this, all you need to do is select salesperson, and then click insert, and you should be good. You might have to, after that, close the dialog box, depending on whether it goes away or not. So now I have sincerely, and then a merge tag for salesperson. Okay, so now we're good. We've got all of our stuff in here. What I'm gonna do is come up to the top where it says ABC preview results. I'll click on that. And now it's going to change my view. So I can see I've got Abelard Rickard, 6582 Cinder Meadow, Snaketown, Yukon, Y4E, Canada. Dear Abelard Rickard, we're glad you become a customer with us. We'd love to offer you $25 off your next order, blah, 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 CA25, good. And then Ray, the salesperson. If I click the left arrow up here we go. Abin Woodbury, 3372 Golden Creek Campus, Broken Bow, Montana, 59337. We'd love to offer you $20 off your next order with us. Just use the offer code US20. And then Ray down here as well, because she was also his salesperson. But if I go back, or her salesperson, or their salesperson, if I go down here, if I go back to number 1, we get Sadira. And so we can see, and Zia Fikes. Everything seems to be working correctly. So the last thing that we need to do, assuming it's all working, now if I were doing this for real, I'd probably change the spacing here in this, go up here and remove space after paragraph, at least for, well, I guess at least for these 2 lines. There we go. So now the whole address block is together. That's good. So now that's looking good, back on the mailings tab, I would click finish and merge. And because I'm doing a letter, not an email, I have 2 options here. Edit individual documents. If I click on that, what's going to happen is Word is it'll probably take a few moments, but it'll generate essentially a separate document that has everyone's customized version of the letter inside of one document. So basically I would see Zia Fikes, and then I would scroll down and I would see like whoever the next person is, Abin Woodbury, and then I would scroll down again and I would find Abelard's copy, and so on and so forth. So that's edit individual documents. You can save that, you can make more, more detailed specific changes to certain, certain copies or whatever else you want to do. And then once you're done, you can print or, whatever you need to do in order to finish getting the letter ready to go out. The other option is just print documents. If I click on that, it's going to create the individual customized versions, but it'll only create them essentially for the purpose of sending them to the printer. So I won't have a separate document that's got each personalized version. I'll just have this document with the merge tags in it. But when I go to print, I'll have every, I'll have the person's, or when I go to print, it'll print each personalized copy. And that's mail merges. And that's class. Are there any other questions that y'all have about anything we talked about today before we wrap it up? All right. Don't see anything. Looks like we're good to go. If y'all do think of questions later on, please feel free to let me know. You can send me an email, digital@cals.org. So that's digital@cals.org. And thank you all so much for coming and joining me today. Like I said, I hope you can join us tonight for the author discussion. Hope you can join me for some other technology classes. We've got a lot of cool stuff coming up pretty soon. And in the meantime, have a fantastic rest of your day. Bye now.